based on experience. Who would we bring in? And so we went after the biggest experts, right? And what would we write? What would we do? What would we teach them? And we went with the goal of creating this course, and that's what happened. So it's just been, so this is our second trip that we're taking, and we'll be doing it again in April and again in October. So,
I wanted to ask you, could you give me like specific tips, maybe a few, what I should do? So I want to get the most of it, but in a very short time, because I'll only have one day to walk around. And so how should I even structure that, because I'll get lost, and I don't even know where to start or what to expect. Like, am I expecting to find one manufacturer? Am I expecting to find new products? Like, how does that go about more practically?
Well, the very first thing that we recommend is that you have a prioritized sourcing list. Right. So do you have some products in mind that you would like to source?
Yes. So normally I work in apparel, but I've decided to switch it up and try to add different categories into the selection. So sort of like accessories that could be digitized accessories and things like that. So now it becomes that any of the Canton Fair parts would be really applicable. So that's what makes it hard. I don't know the product yet. I'm just looking for inspiration, so to say,
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So what we do is we first teach our participants to validate their product ideas. And that's the process of making sure that your idea is viable and people will actually buy it. And I know a lot of people actually skip this process. They kind of just go, well, I'm going to throw it on the market and see what happens, but you don't really want to do that when you're sourcing from China and you have to order 1,000 units at a time minimum, right? So, it's okay to do that if you can source small from Alibaba, AliExpress. I actually have a course on sourcing small as a means of validation. But the thing is, you want to make sure that those product ideas on your list are validated. So you can validate products by we teach our participants to ask 2 questions. First of all, we tell people, talk to strangers, because you don't want to talk to your mama. You don't want to talk to your friends. They love you and they're going to tell you that exactly what you want to hear, right? You want unbiased feedback. So we actually give our entrepreneurs homework to go out and ask 2 questions. So the first question you want to ask about your product idea, you want to do a mock-up of this product. So, you might have an idea and you're kind of looking for inspiration, as you said, but you can definitely get a mock-up done. You can go on Fiverr or, and get an idea of what this product is. So let's say we're going to add a heating element to this shaker cup, and it's going to make us really delicious hot chocolate protein shakes.
Okay.
And this is our brilliant idea, and we really think it's great. Well, obviously, I'm going to take a cup similar to this, and I'm going to put the heating element down here, and I'm going to put some steam coming out of it, right? And I'm going to do a picture of this. And I'm going to show that picture either in a Facebook group, in a Google survey. PickFu is another one. PickFu, that one is a online survey service where you can put 2 products up and have people pick what they prefer. So that's a really great way to get feedback. But you want to get the answer to 2 questions. The first question is, what do you think about this? And the reason you ask that is because it's open-ended, right? And people are either going to say, what is it? Or they're going to go, oh, I've seen something like that before. That's really, that's something that people say, oh yeah, I've seen. Oh, have you? Where have you seen it? And then you can kind of have a conversation about it and really, oh, cool. Oh, okay. So you're asking them what they think about it. And the second question you're going to ask, which is critical, is how much would you pay for it? Because, yeah, I know you can go on Amazon and you can look at similar products and all of that. But remember, you're doing something unique. So you want to make sure, people are going to have a perceived value. based on your mock-up. So actually in our course, we give our entrepreneurs terrible products. We give them pictures of terrible products and we say, go talk to strangers about these products. And it's so great to hear the feedback that they get because it actually gives them really good product ideas. So we give them a really terrible product and they take the picture or they put it on their phone and they've got to go talk to strangers about it. And or they'll put it in like a Facebook group, if it's a onesie, they'll put it in a Facebook group of moms. What do you think about this, right? How much would you pay for it? And it's just so funny because the feedback that they get will often give them really great product ideas because people will say, oh, you know what? I would totally buy that for my uncle's sister's cousin because he loves dogs. And you're like, oh, okay. I hadn't even thought about that. Right. So, it's really great feedback to get. So you want to validate your products before you go, and you can continue validating after you get back, because once you get to the Canton Fair and maybe you see an amazing material for this product that you hadn't even thought of or an idea for it. So then when you get back from the Canton Fair, what I would recommend is that you get 3 supplier options for each of your product ideas. And for each supplier that you talk to, I would recommend that if possible, you actually talk all the way through your design options. So you don't necessarily want to give away your design idea. Remember, the people at Canton that you're talking to are not necessarily factory owners, right? They are most likely sales reps that the company may have even hired the week before because of their ability to speak good English, right? And they'll keep them on staff after that if they do well communicating concepts and selling the products at the Canton Fair. So keep that in mind, that you may not be talking to the factory owner. You may not be talking to somebody who actually has the right information. You're going to get a lot of information about the company, and you're going to get a lot of information about their products. But what we found is that it barely scratches the surface. So what is represented in that booth is normally a tiny fraction of what that factory makes. So Stephen and I, we were working on a product together this last Canton Fair, and we went and visited the factory. And they had 2 showrooms, and they made so many more products than they had showcased at Canton, because at the Canton Fair, think about it, there's 60,000 booths of suppliers. So they're trying to,
I didn't know. Okay.
60,000. So if you had to walk it, it's 217 American football fields, right?
Oh my God.
So the first thing you want to do when you get there is you want to have a list, because otherwise it's just going to be completely overwhelming, right? You want to go in and say, okay, at the top of my list is my heater sports cup, right? I am going to be going. So you're going to go into the Canton Fair, you're going to grab your map, and you're going to say, okay, housewares is in this hall. Got it. I'm going to walk down here and I'm going to make a right, and I'm going to walk through this hall and look for inspiration. If you try, we had some participants that joined us late, and they didn't go all the way through our course because they can go through it afterwards, right? They're in our course for a lifetime. So they're able to always go back and get that support. So some of them hadn't watched the videos or gone through the training before they went, and they were just trying to hand their business cards out to every single, factory that was there. Like, oh, I need to get all these contacts, but that's not quality information, right? And you're going to quickly feel overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, I need to go for another day because I barely even got through one hall. That is not the way to go about things. And then the other thing that I've seen some of the Amazon groups do is they'll go with all of their Amazon tools, right? And they'll go walk through the fair. And then at night, they'll go and they'll like check Jungle Scout or, and see. And again, that's why we recommend that you validate your products ahead of time so that you really have a good list to go out there and say, you know what? I know that my heated sports cup is going to be amazing. I've already validated that people will buy it. I've got my trademark registered. I'm ready to go. Now all I have to do is find my supplier. And the other thing, don't worry about closing a deal at the Canton Fair. Don't worry about making an order of 1,000 units right then and there. up. So make sure you have WeChat installed on your phone, make a connection with them, and build what's called guanxi. It's business relationships. Guanxi is the word in Chinese for a business relationship. And it's really important to the Chinese in business. And if they don't feel that you're serious about building a relationship with them, they will kind of blow you off. And so it's important to establish that rapport. And that's why we encourage our participants, go visit the factory. If you really love this supplier and you've asked all the questions, we train them ahead of time, what questions to ask and how to know, how many products fill up a container, how to speak like a wholesaler and not an Amazon seller so they get amazing prices. And really how to speak with a factory so that they are taken very seriously. It's funny because I'll sit down in a booth and I'll fill out my book here, right? And ask all the questions that I ask. So I ask questions like, what's your company name? And then what's your contact name, right? We will exchange business cards. Business cards are really important. You want to make sure you bring a business card to the Canton Fair. I will staple their business card into my book here. And I will sit down, and the minute I do that, because that's what they do, they staple your business card into their notebook. So the minute you sit down and you start talking with them, after I staple their business card, I borrow their stapler. Hey, can I borrow that? Let me staple that in here, right? And we'll sit down together at the table in the booth and we'll start discussing it. And I'll get their name. I'll write down the product name so I can remember. I'll write down their booth number. So that if I need to follow up with them the next day, I can do that. I will ask them if there's a specific SKU or product ID for this particular product that we're talking about. Maybe we find the shaker cup maker and we go, hey, can I change this? Do you have any options for this? Can I change the cover? Can I change the color? I'm not giving them my design ideas, right? I'm just saying, hey, what are your options? Have you ever worked with, adding heat or cooling to this? Do you have a partner factory that could do something like that, right? And again, you're not giving up your ideas. You're not getting into an agreement yet. You're just talking to them about possibilities. And so you're going to get a really good feel for, oh yeah, we've done that before. Oh yeah, I've worked with this. Okay, great. So the next thing that I do is I say, okay, well, what's the price per unit on one of these? And they'll give me that. And I'll say, what's the MOQ on that? What's the minimum order quantity on that at that price point? And that kind of forces them, sometimes they don't have an MOQ. And then that their price point is not correct, right? So if I ask them their price per unit and MOQ, and they go, oh, that's $4. And then they're sitting there thinking about MOQ, what, then you go, okay, so the next question that we ask is, are there price breaks for higher quantities? So, okay, you just told me 500 at $4, but can I get a discount if I order 1,000? What are we working with there, right? So you're starting to get them to talk about their bottom line, right? Now, this is not yet the process of negotiation because remember, you're most likely talking to a sales rep, unless you're my partner, Steven, who immediately walks in the booth and says, where's the boss? Because in China, kings talk to kings. So never go into a booth and call yourself like the purchasing manager. You're going to get much more clout if you present yourself as the owner of your company, which you are, right? Because in Asian culture, kings talk to kings. So you want to make sure that you're presenting yourself accordingly as the owner of your company.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then you're going to ask, if I order less than the MOQ, is there a surcharge? Because sometimes they'll tell you the MOQ is 1,000, but you might want to start with lower quantities. This is normal. They know that, so you might want to start with lower quantities and you're going to ask them, okay, is there a surcharge if I order less than the MOQ? And you wouldn't believe it. There are so many times when I've had suppliers tell me, oh yeah, it's 20 cents per unit if you order, if you only order 500. Oh, I can only order 500. That's great. Let me write that down. And the reason you want to write it down is because when you get back from China, you're going to have prices that they gave you right in your book. right? So that way you can say, oh yeah, you quoted me 91 cents a unit on that at an MOQ of 500. Will you honor that? So you definitely want to make sure you're writing these things down. You want to ask, what is the quantity for a 40-foot container? Because your goal in your business is to get to the point where you can ship a 40-foot container. At least that's what we teach our folks, because we want them to grow beyond Amazon. And a 40-foot container for growing beyond Amazon is actually very doable.
Pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. So, you write down your differentiators, sizes, colors, packaging. You can ask about packaging while you're there. Yeah, what are your packaging options? How much do you charge for packaging? Do you work with a partner packaging company? That kind of thing. It's good to get that information ahead of time. And then printing, costs for a mold if you need a mold. Do they do mold making? You want to really make sure it's a factory and not a trading company. Because if you're doing something unique, because a trading company cannot sign an NNN and stick by it because they're not the factory. So if you get your heat cup made by a trading company and they have to go to a factory, and that factory can then sell your special heat cup to anyone, and the trading company can't really do anything about it. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with a factory and not a trading company. There's nothing wrong with dealing with a trading company if I'm just going to order these stock and the trading company can give me a good price. They're going to handle all the packaging. Maybe I'm going to make a bundle and they're going to bundle it all together, and if I'm not doing something unique, if I'm doing something stock and I'm doing a bundle, a trading company could be very good, right? So, but just remember that if you are doing something unique, you can't protect it with a trading company. That won't work.
How do you tell if it's a trading company or a manufacturer? Like usually, I guess they won't tell you.
Well, I've had many trading companies tell me that they are both. They will tell me they are both a trading company and a factory. So my answer to that, how do you tell, is you learn the language of the questions to ask. So I can usually tell just by asking the questions that I have been trained to ask in my book. I can usually tell by the answers that they give me, because I will ask them information about their factory. I didn't even get to the right side of the page of the book, but I'm going to ask them about certifications. I'm going to ask them where they're located. I'm going to ask them if I can come and visit. And you'll notice that after they've told you they're a factory, and when you ask if you can come visit, many of them will flail and say, oh, but our factory's in Shenzhen. It's not where the location is on this business card, right? The other question that we ask is, how many employees do you have? If they say they have, 20 employees, most likely they're a third party. They're working in an office. They're not a factory, right? A factory is going to have, minimum 50 to 200 employees. So again, that's why it's so important to learn these things from the start of your business and understand how to properly source and how to properly vet suppliers and how to protect your business and grow it.
These are all very good tips. I'd like to ask you one question that hit my mind while you were telling about kings talk to kings. So I was thinking there's probably a lot of cultural differences that are important to be aware of when talking to them, because I know this because I talk to my sourcing agent a lot. And in the beginning of our relationship, she was basically saying yes to anything I ask. Is this possible? Can you do that? Yes. Yes. Even if she can't do it, she was just saying, yes, I can do it. And later at some point, it turns out that she actually never done it. She cannot do it, but just somehow she still said yes. And it's so unusual. And, I would expect her to say no, but she never said no in the beginning. Later, when we became friends, then she started opening up much more. So could you give me some advice about the cultural things? Like what is most important to be aware of when asking questions, negotiating?
Well, you mentioned some really interesting things about your sourcing agent, and something about we teach our participants to be able to source without an agent, because you absolutely can if you learn the language and what you need to do proper negotiations. But often people find sourcing agents in Facebook groups, in messaging platforms, that kind of thing. That is not the way you find a sourcing agent. In China, in fact, there's classes that people are taking that tell them that basically if they speak English, they can pose as a sourcing agent to any English speaking person and make a lot of money simply by acting as a third party. And there's actual classes teaching people this, the basics of posing as a sourcing agent. So, we introduce our participants to a sourcing agent who has been working in China for over 13 years and has sourced for big companies, right? And he gives some really great practical advice about how to vet a sourcing agent, how you should you should always pay your factory and not the sourcing agent. It's best if a sourcing agent works on commission. And then something else, if a sourcing agent tells you that they can do anything for you, oh yeah, I can find that heated cup for you. I can do a sweater, a tunic for you. I can find a source for anything. They're not a reputable sourcing agent. A reputable sourcing agent needs to be able to speak on your company's behalf, and they should be an expert at the product that they are sourcing for you. So this 13-year sourcing agent that we introduced to our participants is textiles. He's an expert at textiles, and he can answer any question about different materials. He knows the manufacturing processes. He knows factories. He's built relationships, and he will be the first to tell you, no, I can't source your heater cup for you. I'm a textile expert. Now, I know, Jim Bob down the street, he's an expert in sourcing cups, right? Whatever. But if you find a sourcing agent who says, oh yeah, I can get anything for you, that's not a good sourcing agent. That's not even a sourcing agent. You have to be the expert at your products. So even if you use a sourcing agent, you need to know how your product is made. If you don't understand how logos are applied to your product, how your product is manufactured, you have the lower hand. Because then you have no way of vetting your sourcing agent. And you don't know how to negotiate with a factory because you don't even know how they make the product. Which is why, we have this is why we have so much training before China, because we actually have our participants come up with their product ideas, then validate them. Then we have them study the manufacturing processes before they meet this experienced sourcing agent who repeats that, know your manufacturing processes, because you need to be the expert at your product. This is your company. How can you expect to grow it and source effectively if you don't even know how your product is made? So if you're wondering how to do that, check out, there's so many YouTube channels. There's a great series called How It's Made. And so there are so many great ways to research how something is made. But if you have no idea how it's made, you will never understand when a factory tells you, oh no, I need 60 days to make that. And you're like, what are you talking like that? I can't do that with my business, right? But if you ask why, and they give you an answer that has something to do with the manufacturing process, but you know nothing about the manufacturing process, you have no way to vet your sourcing agent, you have no way to vet your factory, and you have no idea what is going on in your business. Right. So that would be my advice to you, is make sure that your sourcing agent does not source everything, because they're just a third party that speaks English. Make sure that they're an expert at your product, and make sure that you are an expert in your product.
The way I found my sourcing agent was my very first product. I found manufacturer on Alibaba, like most of us, right? And it turned out to be a trading agency, so trading company, like they call it. And the way I found out is I Googled up this method where you look up their business license in Chinese on their Chinese province website, and then you Google translate it, and then it tells you what exact activities they do. And there was no manufacturing production of any kind. It was only sales and marketing, something, just trading. So that's how I found out they are. And actual contact that I worked with was so good, and she was just attention to detail. I was making backpacks, which had a lot of zippers details and this longer, this shorter, and I was just randomly telling her things, and she would remember every single detail I ever said about it and would never forget when she ships me the sample. There was always, correct color on this and correct pocket size. Everything was very like attention to detail. And then she quit, and then they switched the agent on me. So there was another contact. And then she didn't have the attention to detail. And now suddenly I started getting the samples with wrong colors and wrong everything. And I lived in Canada at that time. That takes forever to get a sample made and then shipped. And then it's a mistake, so you have to do it again.
And how to prevent that from happening is before they even send the sample, WeChat has a great video feature. So make sure that your factory or whoever you're working with, that you're sending videos back and forth. I actually create PowerPoint presentations of all of my designs. First, I have the factory sign an NNN. Then I will send them my designs. But the designs are, they don't have to be professional, right? You don't have to have 3D CAD and all of that, right? But you should, like, I use PowerPoint, and I'll put the shapes of what I want, and I'll actually put the centimeters in English and Chinese. So I will use Google Translate and, do all of that. And I'll really try to communicate my concept well. That prevents a lot of issues with samples being incorrect. But also what I do is make sure before any samples are sent out that they send me videos. So I say, oh, send me the videos of the bottom of this, can you flip it over? Can you show me the wheels? Like, how does it look? I'm redesigning the product that I invented right now, and to make it collapsible so that I can expand it globally. And I've gotten several samples from different factories, and I noticed what you said. One of the factories, they're just not good with attention to detail. And what I also noticed is they made me pay for samples, which I never pay for samples. I pay for shipping for samples, but I don't pay for samples. And this factory was like, yeah, we can't do it with, we have to charge for it for the raw materials. And I was like, that's a red flag. And then when they sent it out, it was very rushed and kind of thrown together. And the attention to detail wasn't there. And that was another red flag that maybe this company was not in good shape. But the factory that I met at Canton, they barely speak English, and we communicate well over WeChat though, because we can send videos. And the other thing WeChat allows you to do is you can hold your finger down and translate. So if you have a problem, like if they don't understand,
wait a minute, what do you mean? Like, you hold the finger on the message? I've just recently discovered WeChat just because I'm going to China for the events. And then suddenly all my friends are starting to say, yeah, we use it all the time to communicate with manufacturers. And I was suffering. I asked her to send a video, and then she didn't know how to send it to me. They can't use YouTube. So WeChat is the way to go. I just recently discovered that that's the thing. Okay, so there's a message, right? And then you hold the finger on it. Is that how it goes?
Yep. And you should be able to translate it. So, and at least they can do that as well. So if they don't understand something, but I'll send pictures with the measurements next to something, and so I even sent my product to them so that they could make the sample to fit exactly. And boy, did that make a difference versus just sending measurements. And then when I got my most recent samples, it was a perfect fit. Everything was perfect, and I was very excited. So I'm going to visit that factory on my way to China this time, taking Stephen with me because, who wouldn't love to have a negotiation expert on their side? And I'm hoping to really get that for my target price so that I can definitely expand my product globally, as well as my goal this year is independent and then big box retail in the US. And then my goal is to expand it globally as well. So, but in order to do that, I need to decrease the size. The volume is too large and it's really costing me a lot. It's eating up my margins and shipping. It's a very lightweight product, but because of the volume, it's costing me a lot. So, those are lessons that you learn in your business. And so I'm redesigning the packaging for retail and doing some of that. But yeah, it's really helped to go back and forth with WeChat. If you have to, if you can't be at the factory for a negotiation, you can even do a video negotiation via WeChat, which is really effective because, you can read faces, they can read yours, you can definitely be there in person versus, oh yeah, what's your price on this, right? So that's another really effective way if you can't be there in person.
I'm excited. I will visit a few of my factories as well. So basically that sourcing agent was that details girl from the trading agency. She quit because she opened her own trading agency. And then I said, no, I'm going to follow you. So I keep working with her. And now she's found those little factories that are not even on Alibaba. They don't speak English and they're so small. They're like family businesses, and I sell purses most of the time, apparel, purses, accessories for purses. And so there's like a family and everyone gets together to sew the purses for me, so I'm so excited to visit them. It's going to be like a family meeting because I've seen a lot of pictures of a factory already from my reports.
And that's going to change. That's really going to change the progression of your business. What you're going to notice after you visit them is your relationship is going to be so much stronger. And when you need to grow and when you need to come back to them and say, you know what, in order for me to scale, we've got to get the prices down. Can we work together on that? And it's more of a partnership versus well, you need to do this for me. It's more of, okay, you grow, I grow. And so that's something that we try and encourage our entrepreneurs to do, is really think about it being a partnership and you getting a price that you can be happy with in order for your business to scale, but also that your factory can be happy with, right? Because you don't want them cutting corners to make it happen for you, and you want them to grow as well. So, but if you actually communicate that to them, if you say, I need to work together to lower whatever costs are variable to be able to meet this target price so that I can be happy, the customer can be happy, and you can be happy. Then they kind of see it as, oh, okay, I got it. We can work together on this. And our participants, even the ones that had existing factories, were able to bring their prices down by 30 to 40%. So it really could make a big difference for their business.
That's significant. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, this has been great. So I guess for those watching, let me share my screen again. Let's just remind them. So that's the main way to contact you, right? Through the cantonfairexperience.com.
Yep, they could definitely check me out at the cantonfairexperience.com. We also have a Facebook group for e-commerce sellers, and that is called Amazing at Home. You can go to amazingathome.com, or you can visit us Facebook / Amazing at Home. And so this is a group of entrepreneurs that it's a small group, and we love it to be small because we really help each other and support each other. So definitely, if you have any questions, if you need help with anything, I've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs improve their e-commerce sales. And definitely we go live every week. We have a podcast. We go live. It's called the Seller Roundtable. And our podcast is pretty cool. Oh man.
I'm just getting some social proof.
Yeah, definitely. But we have a really great community of entrepreneurs. I have a ton of free training in my group on everything from listing optimization to Facebook ads to everything you can imagine. I try and share it. So, and then every week, as I mentioned, we have free coaching in the form of our podcast, where we get on Zoom and you can join us for our podcast recording. And like we had Neil Patel on a couple weeks ago. We had Cindy from Profit First for e-commerce sellers. So we definitely try to bring really great content to the audience and talk about everything from Trump tariffs all the way to negotiating to marketing and everything for your business. So definitely join us there. We're on every major podcast platform, and certainly connect with us through Amazing at Home. If you're looking to take your business to the next level and you really want to learn this stuff for real, even if you've been on another China trip, I can guarantee you that there is no comparison. And you can ask any of our participants and they will tell you the same, that, it's just a really cool opportunity to get your business started on the right foot and be able to source like a pro and scale like a pro. So.
Well, that sounds great. I'm excited that I'll meet you in person in Hong Kong.
Yes.
That's pretty
yes. What are you speaking on at Global Sources?
My topic is pricing psychology, so for Amazon sellers.
Oh, exciting.
The most favorite topic of mine. So I've been doing a lot of research and testing and been consulting different sellers, getting different feedback. So that strategies have changed since 2 years I started them, and it's developed into something very interesting. So I now learned how to tweak the prices, to get more click-through, to ease the comprehension of the price. Like all of these things is really interesting topic to me personally.